Welcome everybody to today's video. As you all guys know, next year guys, we will be celebrating 10 years of me going to Monster Jam. And as we celebrate, we're going to be taking a look at how everything started, my interest in Monster Jam and everything. So guys, be ready for a ride as you'll get to see all my experiences of Monster Jam, all the good, all the bad. And in the time, I almost gave up the entire sport of Monster Jam. So, let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to the beginning of monster trucks. Somewhere in the 1900s or 1950s or 60s or 70s, the first monster truck Bigfoot was invented. Then, guys, in 1982, the legendary Gravedigger was invented. 1992, who would mark Monster Jam's beginnings. And then in 2008, I was born. I was born in July of 2008. Now, how did I find the interest in Monster Jam, you may question? Well, it started kind of like how Monster Jam OCD's career began, which is through Monster Jam toys. At the time, Hot Wheels was making Monster Jam trucks. And you can see right here, we've got as the first two trucks I got was a Brutus, the red Brutus to be exact, and although guys, unfortunately I could not find the images to a Revan. If you guys can remember back in the old Hot Wheels Monster Jam days, they had Revan Go's. So, I also got a Revan Go of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but unfortunately pictures of those are lost to time. So that is something I got. I also, guys, so that is how I originally got my interest. After then, I just kind of hooked on Monster Jam, and that just started became one of my main interests. And then after that, I would spend my childhood watching Monster Jam World Finals 9 by Diora Dude, his OG video. In my early childhood days, I would spend it watching Monster Jam. In my early childhood days, I would usually spend my time for Monster Jam just watching old freestyle runs of Gravedigger, and it's a bunch of old Monster Jam back during the Speed TV days of Monster Jam. Credit to TheGetaway for providing for this footage. 2012, that is really where I started to first see my first ever monster truck. From digging through the archives of photos on my computer, I have discovered the first truck I ever saw was Stone Crusher, at a display for Tampa's show number 1 of 2012. The second truck that I would see later on that day, was Gravedigger the Legend at another display for that weekend's Tampa show. And then a couple weeks later for the February Tampa show 2012, things were really starting to peak and something new and exciting was about to start for the career of Monster Jam, as I would see another truck on display, being Avenger at a Dairy Queen, and this would also be so this is where I'd also get my chance to see Jim Kohler after me being very, very scared to walk up to him, and we would eventually do it, and probably be one of my first ever drivers to meet the truck, Jim Kohler of Avenger. I also would see Advanced Auto Parts Grinder. Yeah, the good old days. As well, guys, as my first ever Monster Jam driver I really got comfortable going up close to was Medusa. Back in 2012 for the Tampa show. Now, guys, I would attend the pit party for Tampa show 1 of 2000, Tampa show 2, 2012. But guys, I was born with autism, which people with autism may be sensitive to loud sounds. So the loud sounds of the truck definitely made me not want to go to the show because I didn't like them. But my parents would get their chance to go to their first ever Monster Jam show without me. I just went to my grandparents' house when my parents went to their first show. My parents' first show in Tampa 2 2012 would feature the following lineup: Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger, Neil Elliott and Max D, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco, Lupe Sosa and Advanced Auto Parts Grinder, Medusa, Jim Kohler and Avenger, Chris Bergeron and Brutus, Steve Kohler and Wrecking Crew, Jeff Anderson and Spike, Jeremy Slivko in Backdraft, Andy Slivko in Eradicator, Scott Hartsock in Gunslinger, Tim Minty in Storm Damage, Stephen Thompson in Hurricane Force, Randy Moore in War Wizard, and Andy Hoffman in Nightmare. My parents would go into Raymond James Stadium in early February 2012, ready to go and experience their first Monster Jam show. Parents' first Monster Jam and show, they got to experience a track similar like this. Basically kind of like a St. Louis style in the modern day, where the truck started on top of the pod, went around the center pod, came around and jumped over the race lane for the win. Kind of like the Monster Jam, kind of like the Anaheim track on Monster Jam Steel Titans. In racing at my parents' first show, Dennis Anderson in Gravedigger would defeat Neil Elliott in Max D for the racing win, representing 30 years of Gravedigger. Style at this show was pretty good. The big highlights of freestyle were the following at Tampa show number 1, and Tampa show number 2 of 2012, being in Jeremy Slifko and backdrafting a slap wheelie, and then getting an amazing save. Then moments later, he would go around on this jump and go ahead and save it again, probably being one of the best freestyles in backdraft's entirety history driving the sport. And this would immediately get my parents, starting to get them a bit interested into Monster Jam for all the crazy stunts. Really got my parents' attention, especially my mom, is Jim Kohler, an Avenger, who would come out that night and win freestyle, as he would absolutely launch the Avenger truck through the air at Raymond James Stadium to get the freestyle win, as he would win that night. This really started to get my parents interested into the sport, and they definitely probably wanted to go to another show after this. Being in going to a show within the golden era of Monster Jam, this really did start to get their interest because of the high-flying trucks that they got to see. But 2013, it would be a big year for the interest of me going to Monster Jam. 2013 is really where my Monster Jam interest really started to take off and got a big career and got started. In 2013, I would get my chance to go to my very first Monster Jam show. In the January show of 2013 for Monster Jam. But a few days before the show, I was able to go to some truck displays, including to go see Raising Cane and Advanced Auto Parts Grinder. This is a picture I did get of Raising Cane, but the Grinder pictures are lost to time. I don't know about this, but I did go to the pit part. But the thing I don't know is, I don't know if these trucks were debuting trucks or if these trucks have already debuted in other past shows, being Hooked, Zombie, and the 10th anniversary Max D. But these shows are possibly the debut of these new bodies and trucks. But it is unknown. The lineup for this show would feature the following: Chris Lagana and Monster Mo Rottweiler, Brandon Darrow in Bad News Travels Fast, Jarek McMillan in Raising Cane, Randy Moore in War Wizard, Scott Hartsock in Gunslinger, Brian Wright in Hooked, TJ Tripp in Ice Cream Man, Dustin Brown in Wolverine, Morgan Kane in Iron Man, Sean Duhan in Zombie, Steve Sims in Stonecrusher, Rod Schmidt in Gravedigger, Mark McDonald in El Toro Loco, Frank Krimmel in Advanced Auto Parts Grinder, Ryan Anderson in Son of a Digger, and Tom Mentz in Max D. This was the lineup for my first show. Originally, from what I heard, Dennis Anderson was supposed to drive in this show. But unfortunately, I think due to some stomach bug, he could not come to the show, and Rod Schmidt would fill in. My very first ever Monster Jam show, I would arrive a bit late to the show. We appeared somewhere during the racing. I was originally going to sit out in the stands of the seating, and unfortunately, due to me having autism and not being liking to the loud sounds, I would sit inside on some staircase at Raymond James Stadium. My mom and dad took turns going out to the stands to watch the show. Although, guys, the results from this have been kind of lost to time. It is not on the Monster Jam website, and this was unlike the Tampa 2012 show, this was a non-televised event. So, from what I think, what we can know just based off memory and grabbing off information maybe from YouTube, Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger, I believe, was your racing winner. Also, at halftime at the show of my first show, we'd also get to see my first ever backflip, being from Tom Mentz in Maximum Destruction. Back during the old days of Monster Jam around the 2013 to 2014, they'd usually have some sort of like mid-time stunt where they were trying to attempt backflips, with backflips only being discovered 3 years earlier by the Cam McQueen and the Nitro Circus at Jacksonville in 2010. So this would be my first ever backflip I would see, but it was not a part of competition. Although, guys, unfortunately, I cannot show any footage because we do not want to get copyrighted by another creator who owns the footage. Something I do have footage for you guys is going to be a freestyle at this show. Freestyle at this show was pretty okay. Some of the big highlights came from the 3 biggest named trucks there. There were some good freestyle runs, such as from Gravedigger. But the 2 big highlights from this Tampa show, that would be Tom Mentz and Max D. He getting an amazing save right here. And, as well as the winning freestyle run, Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger, who would get an amazing save, which would win him the freestyle competition. So overall, this first show of Monster Jam at Raymond James Stadium was a pretty good one. Although I couldn't enjoy it as much, looking back on it now, it was a pretty good show. But unfortunately, the loud noises were a bit hindering to me, so we would need to find a solution. But while we find the solutions, my parents would go to the February show all by themselves while I stayed the night at my grandparents' house. So my parents would go to, so only me and my mom and my dad would go to Tampa show number 2 in February of 2013. At this show here, and for my parents' 3rd ever Monster Jam show in Tampa, show 2 of 2013, and the lineup would be the following: J.R. Ruggiero and El Diablo, Brian Wright and Hook, TJ Tripp and Ice Cream Man, Dustin Brown and Wolverine, Randy Moore and War Wizard, J.R. McNeil and Raisin Kane, and Steve Sims and Stone Crushers, Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger, Medusa, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco, Candace Jolly and Monster Dalmatian, Lindsay Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader, Lupe Sosa and Advanced Auto Parts Grinder, Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy, Neil Elliott and Max D, and Dennis Anderson in Gravedigger. At this show, even though I did not attend this show, I would still go to the displays, being a Wolverine and Monster Energy. Something did interesting that happened at the Monster Energy display. While Monster Energy was going to go load up after his display, when he was loading up for the display and driving to the parking lot, Monster Energy came, I wouldn't say it was that close, but it kind of did come in close to hitting our car. Luckily, Monster Energy did not hit our car and run it over, but it was kind of close. But luckily, nobody was hurt, and our car didn't become a crushed car, and I became a pancake. So that happened. And also, my parents' first ever Monster Jam show would be my parents' first ever broadcasted show on TV, the first ever TV broadcasted show that they ever attended. Although they did not make any appearances on TV. At this show that my parents attended, Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy, he would come away with the racing win. When defeating Lindsay Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader in the finals to do so after Lindsay Wink had spun out, Damon Bradshaw would get the win. In freestyle, Neil Elliott and Max D would go ahead and take the freestyle win, and representing for 10 years of Max D, and that would mark the end of the 2013 season of going to Monster Jam. A big start for their career, but let's see what 2014 would have in store for me and Monster Jam. In 2014, it would be another very interesting year for me in the sport of Monster Jam. To first start off, would be the first show of 2014. Unfortunately, in 2014, for the January Tampa show, 2014, I was unable to make it because I was sick. And since I couldn't be home alone as a 5-year-old, my dad decided to go by himself to the show. The lineup would feature the following: Chad Fortune and Captain America, Mark McDonald and El Toro Loco, Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger, Adam Anderson and Gravedigger the Legend, Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger, Brian Wright and Hooked, Buddy Tompkins and Ice Cream Man, Dustin Brown and Iron Man, Tom Mentz and Max D, Candice Jolly and Monster Dalmatian, Cody Saucier and Monster Energy, Nicole Johnson and Scooby-Doo, Barney Musauer and Spider-Man, Steve Sims and Stonecrusher, Jarek McNeil and Exterminator, and the mystery driver of Doomsday, which was the encore. Racing on my dad's 4th ever Monster Jam event, and Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger would get the win and defeat Mark McDonald and El Toro Loco in the finals in racing. Freestyle at my dad's first ever event that he went to by himself. A lot of interesting things would happen, such as Gravedigger the Legend somehow igniting a motorhome on fire. Yeah. I didn't care on how he did that. Gravedigger the Legend would also get a nice save, as well as a pretty amazing backflip attempt right here that Adam Anderson would unfortunately fail. There would be also another standout amazing freestyle run from Tom Mentz in Max D, who would have just an amazing, almost like a Scott Buto backflip right here. And then Mentz would just go on to do Mentz stuff. Although the truck was broken, he would still do Mentz stuff by just throwing it around and then saving it, and then just doing stuff typical Mentz would do, getting saves and just being the GOAT and being the 11-time world champion that he was back then, doing all the crazy stuff that Tom Mentz would do. And he would have another really amazing run out there in Tampa. Since Dennis Anderson had won racing, Dennis decided to do an encore with for his freestyle. He would bring out 2 trucks. Obviously, he would get disqualified for this, since it's kind of unfair to have 2 of your trucks freestyling out there. That kind of be unfairing towards the score. But so Dennis just did it just for the fans who came out and supported him. And him and Charlie Pauken and the other Gravedigger, I can't remember what Gravedigger that was. I probably like to think it was 27, but I can't remember what digger chassis that is. But him and Pauken would just go out there and tear it up for the fans and just burn it down. Freestyle though, despite all the crazy stuff Mentz did, Adam Anderson and Gravedigger the Legend would get the win. We think that's the end, right? No! There was still another encore left, which was Doomsday. The unveiling and first ever freestyle run of Doomsday. Bet the fans thought it was the end of the world as soon as they heard all that loud, dooming music play in the stadium. They must have thought it was the end of the world, or the rapture, or something like that. And so my dad would get to witness the very first Doomsday encore. And in fact, we don't know who the driver was. It was a pretty cool first ever encore from Doomsday. And this would mark the end of the show. This show my dad went to because I was sick and I couldn't be home alone because I was only like 5 years old, and so I was sick, and so me and my mom stayed home. So my dad went to the show, and it would turn out to be one of probably the best shows my dad has ever attended. Because if according to Monster Talk, this is one of the best shows out there. Not including World Finals, this is definitely one of the best stadium shows out there besides World Finals. So it was very nice for my dad to get to attend this show. For this show, I'd attend one truck display, which would be Monster Energy. And I'd also go to the pit party for the show as well. In February of 2014, Monster Jam would come back to Tampa for another show. But guys, this show, guys, is probably one of the most lost Monster Jam shows of all time. This show barely has any footage exists of this show. I found some on YouTube, but I can't show it to you because I don't know if it's copyrighted, and I don't want the person who owns that video to have me take down my video. So barely any footage of this show exists. This TV show is not broadcasted. And this was a pre-2015 show, so none of the results are on MonsterJam.com. And there's not even a wiki fandom page of showing not even just the lineup or any results or winners. So we're just going to have to go based off memory. But luckily though, I was able to find the intros to give you guys the full lineup for this show. The lineup at Tampa 2 2014 would consist of Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger, Steve Sims and Stone Crusher, Brian Wright and Hooked, Adam Anderson and Gravedigger the Legend, Chad Fortune and Captain America, Neil Elliott and Max D, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco, Nicole Johnson and Scooby-Doo, Alex Blackwell and Captain's Curse, Lindsay Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader, Steve Kohler and Wrecking Crew, Jim Kohler and Avenger, Randy Moore and War Wizard, Jarek McNeil and Exterminator, Buddy Tompkins and Ice Cream Man, Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger, not Slinger, this is the best image I could find. And that would be the lineup. There are 2 truck displays I believe I went to, but hardly any photos of this. All the photos I've owned of this show and or videos, I do have some videos of the show, have all been lost to time. But I think I did go to a display for both Stone Crusher and Gravedigger the Legend for that show. Also, guys, I was eating some McDonald's by an interstate when I happened to see Gunslinger and War Wizard come off the interstate to arrive at the stadium. So that would be it for the show. I did not go to the pit party. I arrived shortly after the pit party ended to go to the show. And guys, unlike Tampa, this would be my second show ever. And since we found an issue of how I can deal with the noise, which was by watching the show through these windows up here at club level seats. So I could sit here and watch the show. And watch the show from here. That is how I did it way back then, and because I was sensitive to the loud sounds. In racing, although I can't show any footage or have any confirmed results, I believe Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger would get the win would defeat Adam Anderson and Gravedigger the Legend in the finals. The show also had for the freestyle obstacle course, not only did it have buses, cars, vans, motorhomes, the show also even had a crush plane. Probably something that was barely used and hardly seen at any Monster Jam shows. But at the show, I believe in freestyle, Neil Elliott and Max D would get the win after a failed backflip attempt. This would be the first backflip I would get to see. This would be my second backflip I'd ever get to see in person. But Neil Elliott over-rotated and couldn't land it. And that would be the end of 2014. Let's see what happens in 2015 as the entire sport of Monster Jam started to take a change. It was now 2015. The sport of Monster Jam started to change with less crush cars and BKTs coming into the sport. But I would go to another Monster Jam Tampa show being for the January show. The show is a broadcasted to TV event because Tampa show 1 of 2015 going to be a part of the 2015 Monster Jam FS1 Championship Series. The lineup would include the following: Jim Kohler and Avenger, Brandon Darrow and Bad News Travels Fast, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco, Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger, Steven Sims and Hooked, Lindsay Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader, Medusa and Medusa, Neil Elliott and Max D, Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy, Dustin Brown and Monster Mud, Steve Sims and Stone Crusher, Donald Epidenio and Titan, Jim Benzik and Thunder 4x4, Darren Goen in War Wizard, Steve Kohler in Wrecking Crew, and Barney Musauer in Zombie. Now, at this show, this would be my first show being this is my third Monster Jam show, this would be my first show to not feature Gunslinger or Ice Cream Man. I'd go see 3 truck displays, being Max D, Gravedigger, and Medusa. In qualifying, Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy would get the fastest pass. And then the obstacle course winner would go to Dustin Brown and Monster Mutt. Lindsey Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader would get the racing win. And then in freestyle, Steven Sims and Hook would come away with a freestyle win. Unfortunately, I cannot show you any footage from the show, due to the possibility of getting my video taken down because I stole somebody else's content, and I don't have the Monster Jam subscription, and the subscription to where I get access to all the shows. So that is why I cannot show you anything. It'd be 1 month later, and this would be my first time ever I would get to attend both Tampa shows. I get to attend both Tampa shows in a year, which is something I've never done before. In the past years, in 2013, 2014, I only attended one show, being the January show in 2013 and the February show in 2014. And now in 2015, I attended both shows. The second show lineup would feature the following: Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger, Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger, Rod Schmidt and Monster Mo Rottweiler, Scott Buteau and Team Outlaws Firestorm, Candace Jolly and Monster Dalmatian, Norm Miller and NEA Police, Alex Blackwell and Captain's Curse, Leo Donald and Zombie Hunter, Lupe Sosa and El Toro Loco, Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger, not Slinger, this is just the best driver card I can find, J.R. McNeil and Exterminator, Buddy Tompkins and Raising Cane, Roy Pridgeon and Ice Cream Man, Matt Pagaludo and Jester, Corey Rummel and Spike, and Brad Allen in Megabyte. This would be my first ever Monster Jam show that I would tend to not feature Stone Crusher, Max D, War Wizard, or Hooked. For the displays, I would get to attend a few displays. The displays I attended were the displays for Gunslinger, Gravedigger, and Spike. At the Spike display, I was able to actually see Megabyte, who was inside the trailer. In the pit party, though, there was an interesting situation. Due to my aunt passing away a couple of weeks earlier, my dad could not attend the pit party, which would make for an interesting situation for the show, since the funeral would be on the same exact day as this show. And of course, bringing a 6-year-old to a funeral is not the best idea. So me and my mom went to the pit party while my dad attended the funeral, and then afterwards, I'd actually have my grandma and grandpa come, who would attend their very first ever Monster Jam show. So this is my first ever time taking my grandparents to a Monster Jam show. Me and my mom at the pit party, we were able to get to meet Candace Jolly, Rod Schmidt, Leo Donald, and Ryan Anderson. Then at showtime, I was originally going to sit in the seats for the first time ever, but I got scared and decided not to do it. So me, my mom, and my grandma sat at the club level seats on the inside, while my dad and my grandpa sat outside in the seats. For the show, Rod Schmidt and Monster Mo Rottweiler would be the fastest qualifier. So apparently, guys, in this show, I was saying it weird that would happen is whoever got out round 1 in racing had to compete in some wheelie competition. Those 4 trucks, and there would be 4 trucks, being Captain's Curse, Team Atlas Firestorm, Raising Cane, and Gravedigger, all competed in wheelies. But in this wheelie competition, Alex Blackwell and Captain's Curse would get the win. In the obstacle course, Leo Donald and Zombie Hunter would get the win. And then in racing, Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger would win racing in defeating Candace Jolly and Monster Dalmatian in the finals for the win. This show would start out to be okay. But what would come out next out of Lupe Sosa and El Toro Loco would probably be one of the best freestyles I have probably ever seen. And probably by far been this point in the story, or probably been the best freestyle run I've ever seen yet. Lupe Sosa, who would go off looking like he was going to do a slap wheelie. He slap wheelies into that and does practically what is almost like a front flip and saves it. But Lupe is not done though. He's not done though with this freestyle. If you're gonna fast forward. Then fast forward a minute later into his run, Lupe Sosa would probably do something you'd see Tom Meents do, which is save it like this off one tire. Lupe Sosa would then go on to win freestyle with this incredible performance. Probably the best performance I've probably seen so far. As he'd end up on his lid, and probably the best show I'd probably have seen so far in my entire history. But the shows will just continue to get better, as we'll see in the coming up years. And that would wrap up 2015. Besides from the fact that in the summer of 2015, I'd meet my friend Jackson, he would play a tiny role into this entire story of me going to Monster Jam. It is now time for 2016. And for the first show, the year that I attended 2016 in January, it would be for the FS1 Championship Series, which was broadcasted to TV. It would feature Jim Kohler and Avenger, Mike Vauders and Black Stallion, Brett Allen and Brutus, Becky McDonough and El Toro Loco, Adam Anderson and Gravedigger, Brian Wright and Hooked, David Smith and King Crunch, Lindsay Wake and Luke Soul Crusader, Tom Meents and Max D, Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy, Dustin Brown and Monster My Junkyard Dog, Mikey Violence II in Overkill Evolution, Steven Sims and Pirate's Curse, Chad Fortune and Soldier Fortune, Steve Sims and Stone Crusher, and Shane Freed in War Wizard. I would get to attend a couple displays, being for Max D, El Toro Loco, Monster Energy, and Gravedigger. But when I got to the stadium, the next day, something just wasn't right. This is what I thought.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
The thing is, what wasn't right when I got to the stadium on Friday was the fact that Avenger and Brutus were missing. It turns out at this show, Avenger and Brutus were having rig troubles where I believe their trailer, got a flat tire or broke down. So they were late and they wouldn't make it to Friday's practice session, which was such a shame. Also that night, on Friday night, another big thing would happen. And as well, guys, I got my chance to meet Adam Anderson. He'd gracefully come and walk over to us after practice. This officially made him my new favorite driver, because over the past years of Monster Jam, my favorite drivers were Tom Meents and Dennis Anderson were my favorite drivers. But after this occurrence, Adam Anderson became my favorite driver. Also, sorry if our eyes look creepy in the photo, because this was back before the iPhone 13 or 14 existed, where we had good photos, and photos turned out like this. So, my apologies. This was taken back in 2016. We didn't have the modern fancy iPhones like we do now. And at the pit party, I got my chance to meet quite a few drivers. Also, Avenger and Brutus showed up for the day. I got my chance to meet Jim Kohler, Brad Allen, Lindsay Wink, and Damon Bradshaw. Also for the show, my grandparents would come and attend for their second and last show. And qualifying, Adam Anderson would get the fastest pass. The donut competition, Becky McDonough and El Toro Loco would win donuts. With a very nice donut that you see right here. Because the obstacle course competition got replaced with the donut competition, as Becky McDonough would easily win this. Also, due to all the troubles for Team Scream's weekend would get off to a bad start. Number one, I don't think neither of them got really good qualifying passes. I don't even think they qualified at all. And Brutus and Avenger were unable to make it out for donuts, which would be such a shame for the team. Racing, the final round would come down to between Adam Anderson and Damon Bradshaw. Adam Anderson would have a crazy pass as he'd end up almost crashing. Luckily would save it, and Tampa Bradshaw would just wheel his truck across the finish line for the win. Also, after this, that way they wouldn't face traffic. My grandma and grandpa would leave the show after racing and sessing around for the full show and would head home. 2016 would mark the start of an era of people trying to jump over as many monster trucks as they can. And Tom Meents would for a halftime show jump with another Max D. He would jump 3 trucks, which he would successfully nail during the halftime after the racing. And then it would be time for freestyle. Now there would be some good news, as Brad Allen and Brutus was able to make it out. Unfortunately, Jim Kohler and Avengers truck was unable to make it out for freestyle and got a DNC. What a shame for Jim Kohler and Avenger. The other big highlights from freestyle was Becky McDonough and El Toro Loco trying for a backflip, but unfortunately failed. Guys, I don't know, but over the past 3 years of going to Monstrum shows, I just could not get my chance to see a backflip in competition. As Neil Elliott failed, Medusa failed, Dustin Brown failed, Jarek McGill and Exterminator failed as well. So I just could not seem to get another competition backflip, but Becky McDonough would also fail. Hopefully soon I could finally get my chance to see my first ever competition backflip. Also feature a good run from Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy, who also had a pretty solid performance in freestyle that night. Big 2 moves from freestyle, well, the big 2 runs came out of the greatest rivalry in motorsports, being Tom Meents and Max D, who would absolutely just send his truck in freestyle and go out there and wing it, putting everything on the line. Meents would have a pretty good freestyle. And you see right there where he just absolutely launches it and then saves it. Big air and consistency wasn't enough for Tom Meents to get the win, as Adam Anderson and Gravedigger would get the freestyle win in Gravedigger. After having a good run with a broken truck, where he would get a very, very, very nice save to end off the run and end off the show, which was, in my opinion, pretty good. It was a really good show. I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time at it. There's so many wow moments here from this show. Although we didn't get to see some crazy one-wheel saves and front flips like Lupe Sosa, but we still got some pretty cool wow moments, such as that from Adam Anderson in Gravedigger. And that would be it until February. Time for show 2 in February of 2016. And the lineup would feature the following: Bernard Blight and Chad Tingler in Alien Invasion, Jimmy Cretin in Bounty Hunter, Scott Liddycoat in Dragon, Carl Van Horn in Gravedigger, Roy Pritchett in Ice Cream Man, Matt Pagliuto in Jester, Stephen Thompson in Hurricane Force, Rod Schmidt in Monster Mount Rottweiler, Doomsday, Todd Morey in Iron Outlaw, Ryan Anderson in Son of a Digger, Nicole Johnson in Scooby-Doo, Buddy Tompkins in Racing Kane, J.R. McNeil in Exterminator, Scott Hartsock in Gunslinger, Tony Oaks in Soldier of Fortune Black Ops, and then Storm Damage was driven by John Killinger, who I could not find his face online. So whoever that dude is, I have no idea. Yeah, I couldn't find his image or his face online. No images of him I don't think exist, since I did not meet him at the pit party. But other than that, at this show, there's also some other rumors about other trucks competing at this show. This show in 2016 in March would mark my biggest lineup I'd ever seen, being a 17 truck show, unlike a 16 truck show that I had seen all the previous shows. There were also rumors and speculations that Mohawk Warrior competed at this event. But if you were to take a look at YouTube footage, Mohawk Warrior was nowhere to be found. He was not seen at the pit party. He was not seen for intros or even inside the stadium at all, unless he somehow blew a motor and he was stuck inside the trailer of a truck. But he did not compete. He never entered onto the track for intros. He didn't compete in qualifying. His name wasn't even on the website, sites that he competed at this show. If you go to take a look at the results, so Mohawk Warrior did not compete at this show. There are also some speculation with Medusa competing at this show. Well, later on, we will discuss it. And this would also be my first ever show to not have an El Toro Loco in the field. For the displays, I saw quite a few. I saw Bounty Hunter. Also, I saw Exterminator and Ice Cream Man, who are at the same exact display. I also saw Son of a Digger, and I also saw Medusa. Medusa, I guess, was just here for a display because her truck never returned to the pit area on Thursday. And it looks like she ended up breaking her arm, so she couldn't compete in the show. It was also very rainy for that weekend. It was also, guys, going to be marking my first ever mud show, which this would mark my first ever mud show, as it would be rainy and very muddy. I was originally not going to sit in my seats for the show because my parents told me like I would get for SpongeBob toy if I braved it out and sat in the seats. So I was like, okay, I would do it. And so we still stuck to it even though the rain. In mud, for the first time ever using phones at 7 years old in 2016, I'd get to sit out in the stands for the first time going to a Monster Jam show. Instead of sitting at club level like I did at all the other shows, sitting at club level or sitting in the behind staircase at Raymond James Stadium. So this show is going to be a muddy one for the first time. I'd go to the pit party in the rain and get to meet two drivers, being Chad Tingler and Ryan Anderson. In the show, Scott Liddycode and Dragon and would get the fastest qualifying pass. In Donuts, Nicole Johnson in the mud would get the win in Scooby-Doo. And then in racing, Scott Liddycode and Dragon would get the win. And now it was time to see my first ever mud show freestyle. The interesting thing that happened in freestyle at this show was Alien Invasion somehow getting stuck on a crush car, I guess. Yes, you see it goes here, and he somehow gets stuck on this crush car. Yeah, you know, that's a bit weird, but still, this is not the last time we'll see trucks getting stuck. We're gonna see it, and this only 2 years down, like less than 2 years down the road, something similar where a truck would get stuck would happen. But he'd get stuck on the crush cars and be left there for the rest of the show. Legend has it, the Alien Invasion is still stuck on that crush car at Raymond James Stadium to this day. And in freestyle, Ryan Anderson would pull away with the win, being Ryan Anderson, and growing up in the mud, he would absolutely send that truck across Raymond James Stadium, and then he would go for the backflip. Would this be my first time I'd ever get to see my first career backflip ever? Something that we've been trying to see since the backflip got invented? Would this be the first successful one? No. Ryan Anderson probably would have landed that if it weren't for Raising Cane sitting there. If Raising Cane didn't sit there, that probably would have been my first backflip I probably would have ever seen attempted. But the scene completed. But unfortunately it wouldn't happen. That marked the end of 2016. But still, that would probably be one of the best shows. That would probably be one of the best shows so far that I got to attend. Probably wasn't as good as when Lupe Sosa got that incredible saves, but it's still up there on that list at probably either number 2 or 3. And that would mark my first time sitting in the seats, and I liked it. And we probably do it in the future. And also, I'd meet in the summer of 2016 my friend Jonas. Also, Jackson, I asked him if he wanted to go to the shows in Tampa that year, but unfortunately, it just couldn't happen. Will in 2017, will the boys get to go to a Monster Jam show? Will I finally see my first career backflip? Well, let's find out. December 2017, and it was time for the first show of 2017 for Monster Jam that I went to. The first Monster Jam show I went to in 2017 was for Monster Jam Stadium Championship Series 3 of that year. This show is not broadcasted to TV and would feature the following lineup: Dennis Anderson in Gravedigger, Ryan Anderson in Son of a Digger, Cody Saucier in Monster Energy, Matt Pegreluto in Jester, J.R. McNeil in Exterminator, Mike Thompson in Wrecking Crew, Corey Rummel in Rage, Devin Jones in Barbarian, Jamie Garner in Overboard, Becky McDonough in El Toro Loco, Mike Christensen in Iron Outlaw, Mikey Waters II in Overkill Evolution, Mike Waters Sr. in Black Stallion, and Todd Morey in Bounty Hunter. For the displays, I ended up attending a few displays. I attended the display for Gravedigger, Rage, Monster Energy, and Son of a Digger. While at the stadium on Thursday, something very weird and interesting would happen. Being my mom's car, due to not having headphones and not really liking the loud sound and staying in the car because it was a bit cold outside because it's January in Tampa and it can be a bit cold. So, and using the heater in our car and sitting in the car, or for a large part, apparently my mom's car is having trouble starting when we were trying to leave the stadium. Thankfully for my friend Nick, who was also hanging out at the stadium, and he was able to help us out get my mom's car back up and running so that way we could leave and get home. If it weren't for him, we could be stranded there to this day. Well, we could have walked home or just called my dad, but you know what I mean. On Friday, I was hanging out at the stadium where I'd meet Dennis Anderson, which would be very cool. Too bad that it's one of my only pictures I got of Dennis Anderson, my eyes were closed, so it's a bit of a bad photo. Maybe I'll see him in World Finals again in 2023. On Friday night, another very interesting thing would happen. And so, at nighttime, we were trying to look, there were these, kind of like bike racks, so to say. These silver things with some bars on them. They're kind of like a bike rack, essentially. Well, me and my friends were standing on them because we were trying to look over the fence to try to see the monster truck, since Gravedigger and Son of a Digger could not be seen on the ground due to bushes that were in the way of the fence, and so we couldn't see. And then a security guard just comes running up to us, yelling at us for no reason, and we were not really trying to do anything wrong. We were just trying to look at Gravedigger and Son of a Digger, who were behind some trailers, and we couldn't see. And the person was like yelling at us, threatening us. Or the security guard was yelling at us, threatening us, which really I kind of didn't like, and I kind of almost wanted to quit hanging out at Raymond James Stadium for Monster Jam. But this would not be true coming back to the second show in just 1 month later. But looking back on this situation now, I'm a bit more understanding and compassion towards the person. Maybe the person was having a hard time with their income, or just had some stress in life, and they just didn't want to lose their job. And so now being an older person, having more understanding on life, I can now have a better understanding on the situation and what happened. But the next day at the pit party, but this show would feature probably the most amount of debuting new paint schemes I'd ever see at a Monster Jam show. First off, I don't even know if we can consider this a paint scheme, but we'd see the new 35th anniversary Gravedigger body at this show, which would make a debut, although it was just a 35th anniversary logo on the truck. Yeah. We'd also get to see the brand new Gray Iron Outlaw, Stepped Overboard, Green Jester, the new Monster Energy paint scheme, a chromish new scheme for Overkill, Sunset Wrecking Crew, Bubba Burger, UNOH Bounty Hunter, a new Barbarian, and an alternate hood paint scheme for Black Stallion, where it was a red and white, kind of like checkered flag, which is the Maryland flag. At the pit party, I'd give my chance to meet Cody Saucier in Monster Energy, which being the only driver I met at the pit party. Also, during the truck race, two interesting things would happen. First off, Jamie Garner and Overboard would have to be towed practically toward the pit area. Luckily, as it was entering the pit area, they got the truck fired, as we almost had two trucks not being able to compete. And Barbarian was just having issues as well. But luckily, they got the trucks fixed up and they were able to run. So the USA flag would appear on the video board, and after the USA flag would appear off the video board after the national anthem, the show would mark the end of not only just an era in Monster Jam, but a legacy. At this show in 2017, Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger would get the fastest qualifier. In the wheelie competition, since wheelies were replacing the donut competition, Mike Thompson and Wrecking Crew would get the win. And then in racing, Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger would get the racing win, defeating Mike Christensen in Iron Outlaw in the finals. Freestyle there features some pretty good runs such as from Mikey Vaughters, a second in Overkill Evolution, who'd go big and have a pretty good run. The biggest highlights from the show came from the last three freestyles. First up, Cody Saucier and Monster Energy would come out. But Cody Saucier would have a pretty good run. And then, guys, unfortunately, I have no non-copyrighted footage. I don't want to steal anybody else's footage, so we're going to have to make do with just the PowerPoint slide and me describing. But Cody would have a pretty good run. Cody would line up for the backflip ramp. And I had seen so many backflip attempts that we really, really wanted to see a successful backflip. Cody would line up for the backflip and nail it. Cody Saucier and Monster Energy would officially mark my first ever competition backflip ever to be seen completed in Monster Jam. After all the failed attempts from Ryan Anderson and Jarek McNeil, Becky McDonough, Medusa, Dustin Brown, Neil Elliott, for all those failed attempts, Cody Saucier would officially nail the backflip and be my first ever successful backflip I ever get to see in competition. And Cody would score a perfect score of a 40. Second to last freestyler, which would be Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger. Things would be going pretty normal for Dennis. Dennis getting big air and lots of wow factor. Big credit to Silverbullet for letting me use this footage. Big thank you for it. Credit to, and link to his channel will be in the comment section down below. But Dennis is having a pretty normal run. Thanks here, just doing normal Dennis things like getting big air and shredding the body off after he had a pretty wicked crash in racing. And I believe the first race would be either round 2 or round 1. Dennis Anderson went to back up and they would shut him down. And now, guys, and then he was shut down and they were trying to get him to refire. You can see here they got him to refire with 30 seconds left on the clock. They're trying to get him refired. Judges are already starting to show their scorecards. And the ribbon boards go red, meaning that would probably be the end of the run. But Dennis was refired, so he decided to keep going after getting shut off for only backing up. Dennis kept on going. Getting big air, and then he would go and line up for the backflip, which would change Monster Jam forever. He'd try the backflip and then land on his roof, which would mark the end of his run. More on what happens after this will be explained in a second. We still got one freestyler, being Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger. Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger would have a pretty good run, which should have probably won. He ended up having a bicycle, lots of big air. And it was just a pretty good run from Ryan. Ryan would line up for the backflip and fail. He probably should have won freestyle, but unfortunately they gave it to Cody Saucier. But to this day, I always think that Ryan should have deserved the freestyle win. Although I have no non-copyrighted footage, I wish I could show you this run. It was amazing. Unfortunately, I've got no non-copyrighted footage I can use of this since I did not film anything of this event. After the show, we would learn a few days later, as I didn't know this, after Dennis Anderson had hit the backflip, he had apparently gotten an injury, which is something I didn't know until about 3 days after the event. When I came home from school and turned on the TV, I think my dad or somebody was watching the news, and then we heard this story of Dennis Anderson got on, and then me and my mom and my dad watched it. As Dennis Anderson had received an injury, I mean, I think he broke his collarbone or something. I don't know. That's just from memory. And then a few months later, Dennis Anderson would announce he would be retiring. So this would be the end. This would be the end of an era and an end of a legacy in Monster Jam with Dennis Anderson retiring. The sport would no longer ever be the same without Dennis Anderson, the creator of Monster Jam Freestyle, creator of Gravedigger. As he would unfortunately have to retire after this injury, so he wouldn't get injured. Very unfortunate it had to end out this way for Dennis. I wish Dennis Anderson could have came back just to do one more show and go off the proper ending. Not like that. We did not want to see Dennis Anderson go out like that. But still, although he did go out like that, he still had a pretty good freestyle run and a pretty good night that night in Tampa. Cody Saucier would also, I believe Dennis... I think Ryan Anderson or Cody would take away the event championship, but I can't remember. I forgot to put the image in the slideshow. But although that would happen, it would be time for Show 2. In Show 2, the lineup would feature the following: Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger, Leo Donaldson, VP Racing Fuels Mad Scientist, Chad Fortune, Soldier Fortune, and Metal Militia, John Zimmer and Dragon, Candace Jolly and Monster Dalmatian, Steven Thompson and Hurricane Force, Tim Minty and Storm Damage, Dave Rad Zeras and Extreme Diesel, Mark Hall and Raminator, Shane England and Big Kahuna, Mike Christensen and Iron Outlaw, Todd Morey and Bounty Hunter, and Brandon Darrow and Bad News Travels Fast. Truck Displays at this show, I'd go see a few of them, being the ones for Bounty Hunter, Gravedigger, Monster Dalmatian, and Metal Militia. At this show, Mark Hall and Raminator, and also that year at the Tampa show, luckily we did not have our car break down or almost get arrested. Thankfully that didn't happen, but we also did not meet any drivers at the pit party. At the show, Mark Hall and Raminator would get the fastest qualifying pass. Shane England and Big Kahuna would win wheelies. And then Leo Donaldson, the VP Racing Fuels Mad Scientist, would win racing, defeating John Zimmer and Dragon. John Zimmer had a crazy wreck where he would lose a tire. Fortunately, hardly any footage of this exists online, and I don't want to risk getting copyrighted by stealing another creator's content, so we're just going to have to do best with these images. And this show is also non-broadcasting because it was a part of this year's Stadium Championship Series 4 for the February show on February 4th. And so the racing finals would be insane, and with Leo Donald getting the win, probably the craziest racing finals I have seen, and with all the crazy crashes. And then in freestyle, Leo Donald and John Zimmer would both nail backflips. Being my second and third backflips ever seen. And then Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger would also try a backflip but would fail. In the end, John Zimmer and Dragon would get the freestyle win and the overall event championship. So you may think, we're done with 2016, right? Nope, we just gotta wait.
6 months later.
It would be time for August in 2017, and there was a show announced for Amalie Arena in Tampa. Should be really close to me. I originally was like, nah, I kind of did not want to go to the show because it was a small arena show, not the big stadiums. But we decided to go to it and to see the small arena show. This show had marked the smallest Monster Jam lineup show I'd ever seen, with my first shows in 2013 to 2016 being 16 truck shows, Tampa show 2017 being 17 truck shows, and then the 2 shows in Tampa would mark my smallest lineup being 14 trucks. This lineup would be even smaller, only 8 trucks. The lineup would feature Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger, Cole Eichelberger and Max D, Caleb Blood and El Toro Loco, Miranda Kozad and Scooby-Doo, Tristan England and Earthshaker, Barney Musauer and Zombie, Corey Snyder and Monster Mile Rottweiler, and Matt Cody in Blue Thunder. So at this show that I went to, I'd attend to truck displays being Max D and Scooby-Doo. At the pit party, I met Tristan England and Kristen Anderson. Yeah, she just so happened to be at the event, so I got a picture with them. Yeah. It would be time for the show, and the timed racing winner was Barney Musauer in Zombie. Alrighty. In the skills challenge, the two-wheel competition, and the two-wheel skills challenge, Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger balanced the truck on the front two wheels to get the win. This show here in Amalie Arena really started to mark me first time seeing some new two-wheel action. Since I hadn't really seen that much of the two-wheel action of stoppies and stuff like that, hardly ever before. Since I was usually used to the slap wheelies, sky wheelies, and bicycles from what I'd seen. Never really have I seen any stoppies before, but this would mark the start of me seeing stoppies and the two-wheel game of Monster Jam starting to be incorporated here into the sport. In the ATV racing, Cole Meichelberger and Max D would get the win. In donuts, Caleb Blood and El Toro Loco would get the win. In speedster racing, and Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger would get the win. In freestyle, Caleb Blood and El Toro Loco would get the win. With an amazing save. And as you can see right here, when she'd save the truck. Freestanding crush cars in the arena. That's nice. Event champion would be Barney Musauer in Zombie. And overall, this would end a good show, as this show is actually not that bad for being a small arena. Getting to see the two-wheel action, Tristan England getting a nice save, Caleb Blood having good freestyles. So there's also good freestyles from Bari, Cole Meichelberger, and Tyler Menninga. This would just be a pretty good show. And I really enjoyed for my first ever arena show, something I'd have to do in the future. Also, unfortunately, guys, with the 2017 years, I unfortunately could not get Jackson and Jonas go to a Monster Jam show that year. In case if you guys didn't know, Buckfin23, guys, a person who was just filming in the Amalie Arena shows, was actually my old and first YouTube channel that I ever had. Buckfin23 is the first ever YouTube channel that I had, where I did stuff on that channel such as sign-up series events, like what you kind of see right here, where I do sign-up series as well as some other stuff, such as pool table shows that you'll see in the next clip. Also did pool table shows, of which there was only one pool table show on this channel, which only featured freestyle of a Tampa show that I did of that year. And that is all I did on my YouTube channel, as well as upload Amalie Arena stuff, such as I only attended the first show at Amalie Arena, as there's only two shows, the Saturday evening and Saturday afternoon. I only attended the Saturday afternoon. At the Saturday afternoon show, I filmed Max D's freestyle party. Well, technically my dad filmed it. Throws. Zombie's two-wheel skills competition. Four Locos freestyle competition. Gravedigger's freestyle. Zombie's freestyle. And lastly, Gravedigger's wheelie competition. And that marked the end of 2017. But little did we know, 2018 would bring to be one of my biggest and greatest years of Monster Jam, and so far, and probably even in the entire history of me going. Now time for 2018. In 2018, the original Tampa lineup for Show 1 was originally going to feature Colt Stevens and Brodozer, Candice Jolly and Monster Dalmatian, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco, Tom Menson, Max D, Rosalie Raymer and Wildflower, a to-be-announced driver, Eric Swanson and Obsessed, Corey Rummel and Rage, Mike Thompson and Wrecking Crew, Cody Saucier and Mutant, Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger, Kelvin Raymer in Time Flies, Jamie Garner in Overboard, and Mark Strader in Devastator. However, the lineup would be changed for the show. The lineup here's what the finished and then changed lineup would be: Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger, Tom Mintz and Max D, Scott Buteau and Team Hot Wheels Firestorm, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco, Candice Jolly and Monster by Dalmatian, and Colt Stevens would actually drive Zombie instead of Brodozer because Brodozer wasn't ready, and and Cody Saucier and Scott Buteau swap tours. Corey Rummel would switch from driving Rage to Pirate's Curse. John Gordon would switch from driving, they'd swap out John Gordon for Mike Thompson. They would actually swap out Mike Thompson for John Gordon, my bad, and then they would swap out Wrecking Crew for Scooby-Doo. Jimmy Creighton and Bounty Hunter and Don Creighton and Scarlet Bandit. They did this change since the other two, Obsessed and Devastator, were West Coast trucks and would cost too much money for them to come all the way down to Tampa, Florida, so that's why they got swapped with that. Rosalie Raymer and Wildflower, Kelvin Raymer and Time Flies, Jamie Garner and Overboard, and then a teammate for Jamie Garner, Cole Vennard in Black Pearl. For the truck displays that year, I ended up wanting to go see Monster and Dalmatian, which was just close by the stadium. Then an hour later to St. Petersburg, I went to see Bounty Hunter. And then another hour all the way from St. Petersburg to Bradenton in Florida, I'd go see Team Hot Wheels Firestorm. And a couple minutes down the road, I'd go to Steps Towing to see both Overboard and Max D. And then I'd head back another way to go back to a Circle K to go visit Pirate's Curse. When I was hanging out at the stadium that night, I was able to see all the trucks, except for Team Hot Wheels Firestorm, as that is the only truck that I would not see arrive. That would be almost like my world record for most trucks I've ever seen get to the stadium. The fact that is, it's still currently, to this day, my world record at Raymond James Stadium to seeing all the trucks arrive on Thursday is 13 out of 14. I was never able to do anything higher than that, but I'm theorizing that Hot Wheels was there, but he was just hiding somewhere in a trailer, because we never saw him. But he'd be there the next day, though. The next day on Friday at the stadium, we'd end up missing practice because of, we missed seeing them go in for practice because practice was actually held early in the morning. Because at this time, guys, I was actually on winter break because my old school had 3 weeks of winter break. And so at this 3 weeks of winter break, I was able to go to the stadium instead of having to wait until after school. I could just go in the morning since I didn't have school that day. So they'd run practice in the morning due to rain coming up. I'd hang out at the stadium, watch everybody come out, and then I'd get to see everybody. Then after everybody came out, it was raining, so we just went to a store like Target, because we went to Target. And then we came back to the stadium and watched everybody cross for a pit party. And also, you can see while everybody's crossing for a pit party, I was able to get my chance to see Chuck Warner. This show in Tampa would also mark the debut for several new schemes and trucks. This show would mark the first ever show and debut show of Black Pearl. This also marked the first time we'd see Scooby-Doo on a Team Scream chassis. A new Team Hot Wheels Firestorm to celebrate 50 years. First time we'd see, which would be a split blues and split gold paint job. And the first time seeing Pirate's Curse on a Team Scream chassis. And Bounty Hunter with this lowered center of gravity of trucks so it can be better for racing. During the pit party, I'd get to meet Tom Mintz and Charlie Palkin. And then it would be time for the show to start. At 7 p.m. racing, Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco would get the racing win, defeating Jimmy Creighton and Bounty Hunter with his lowered center of gravity of truck. Jimmy Creighton was looking like he was gonna win, but unfortunately he would either get struck down or his truck would break down, which would allow for Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco to get the win. Skills competition, and Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger would get the win. With his first hit, Charlie Palkin would get a very nice slap wheelie that he would walk across the entire floor of Raymond James Stadium, being a very, very long slap wheelie. Then Charlie Palkin and Gravedigger would then go for a stoppie. And he set it down, allowing for himself to get the two-wheel skills competition win. Good two-wheel move from Monster Dalmatian, and as Canishly tried to go for the stop, he would end up rolling over and end up back on all 4 BKT tires. Freestyle, there feature several good runs, such as good runs from Jamie Garner in Overboard, Stevens in Zombie. There would also be a good run from Colvinard in the Black Pearl, but unfortunately I was unable to film it because we were still trying to get back from our seats from halftime, and I ended up missing Colvinard's freestyle, but he still had a good one where he got a nice, he had a nice backer in Wildflower, Rommel in Pirate's Curse, Hawkin in Gravedigger, lastly, Tom Menton, Max D. Who almost had an amazing sidewall save, but was unfortunately shut down. Also, Time Flies could not compete in freestyle due to some truck issues. Also, there would also be a weird moment in freestyle where, one of the weirdest movements I'd probably ever seen in a freestyle, where Jimmy Creighton and Bounty Hunter would, he would get kind of stuck on the two wheels, and somehow he couldn't get down. I think they shut him off, I think. Or I don't know why he just could have hit the gas, but it looks like, it looks like he got kind of stuck right there. And Chuck Warner and El Toro Loco would win freestyle. And Chuck Warner would go and nail the backflip. And then, after that, he'd go and attempt my first ever corkscrew I'd ever seen in competition, but he would unfortunately fail, but Chuck Warner would still get the freestyle win, when Warner would also pull away the overall event championship with 40 points after winning 2 competitions. Overall, this show was a good one, and in fact, I was able to upload a lot of freestyles, some races, Monster Dalmatian's two-wheel skills, intros, and the truck parade, and even some stuff from hanging out at the stadium on Friday, and some stuff from the truck displays, all are on the YouTube channel BuckFans23. Go check it out. It is really cool if you want to see some of my earlier days of doing videos. This show is amazing. It was really good. A good way to kick off the year. But next weekend would be really cool. It was January 20th, and it was time for Monster Jam at Camping World Stadium. This would be my first time ever going to a Monster Jam show that was in Tampa, and we were at Camping World Stadium. At the pit party, I got my chance to meet most of the drivers, being Jimmy Creighton, Cole Vennard, Don Creighton, Colt Stevens, Tom Mentz, Kelvin Raymer, Jamie Garner, Chuck Warner, Rosalie Raymer, Candice Jolly, Scott Buto, and Corey Rummel. I was able to get autographs from all the drivers and meet them all except for John Gordon and Scooby-Doo, because we were too late. Well, guys, something interesting happened as we were entering Camping World Stadium for the show. As we were entering Camping World Stadium for the show, if you guys have ever attended an event at a stadium, you should know that there's like a security thing that has like a scanner to make sure you don't have anything like illegal in your bags or in your pockets, like drugs or weapons or sharp objects. So, as we were going through there, we were walking through there, and the thing went beep, 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 like we had something that we weren't supposed to. And it turns out the security thing apparently just doesn't like Squidward, because because I'll bring in my SpongeBob characters into the show, and I brought in SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, and Squidward, and I guess the thing thought Squidward was a threat. Luckily, Squidward was still allowed to come into Camping World Stadium. Yeah, I just don't know why, but apparently the thing did not like Squidward. The USA flag would appear on the video board for the national anthem. And once the national anthem was over, but little did we know, the best show that I probably have ever attended, probably one of the best shows I've attended so far, one of the best shows I've ever attended, and was about to begin. Show in Orlando 2018 would be by far the best show I've probably ever attended so far. There are so many crazy things that have happened during the show. Getting to see my first ever corkscrew by Chuck Warner, other good runs such as from Zombie, Gravedigger, Black Pearl, Pirate's Curse, Overboard, Team Hot Wheels. It was Jimmy Crean having doing an amazing job in racing and getting the racing win. Tom Meents probably seeing one of the best two-wheel moves ever from Tom Meents. This was a good show. And despite not winning anything, Colt Stevens and Zombie would get the overall event championship. And that would be the end for this show. Now it's time for the show 2 in Tampa of 2018. The lineup would feature the 2018 Stadium Championship Series 3 lineup, which would feature Carl Van Horn and Gravedigger, who's filling in for Morgan Kane because Morgan Kane had a baby that was due that weekend and couldn't make it. Cody Saucier and Mutant, Mark McDonald and FS1 Cletus, Lindsay Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader, Becky McDonough and El Toro Loco, Stephen Thompson and Earthshaker, Travis Mowry and Zombie, Chad Fortune and Soldier Fortune, Jimmy Creed and Bounty Hunter, Don Creed and Scarlet Bandit, Brandon Darrow and Bad News Travels Fast, Mark Hall and Raminator, Ryan Disharoon and Saigon Shaker, and Scott Hartsock in Slinger. On Thursday, I get to see some of the displays being for Mutant, Soldier Fortune, and Slinger. On the stadium at Friday, I was able to meet Chad Fortune. And then at the pit party on Saturday, I would meet a lot of the drivers, being Carl Van Horn, Lindsey Wink, Stephen Thompson, Ryan DeSharoon, Travis Mowry, Brandon Darrow, and Mark Hall. I did get a chance to meet all the drivers, but probably some of the autographs I got, like ones from Scott Hartsock, Jimmy Creighton, Don Creighton, Becky McDonough, Chad Fortune. I probably got all of those while I was hanging out at the stadium on Friday and the displays on Thursday. So that's why they're not featured here in these photos. Racing with bad fast times all night, Cody Saucier and Mutant would get the racing win to defeat Carl Van Horn and Gravedigger. Cody had been fast all night long. Obviously, trying to represent to represent his hometown, since this is kind of like a hometown since he lives in Dade City of Florida, which is in Tampa. Cody was just on a rail that night. Probably one of the fastest racing competitions I had seen out of a driver, and it was a very nice job to Cody Saucier in Mutant. Two-wheel skills competition, Chad Fortune and Soldier Fortune would get the win, with his first hit being an awesome slap wheelie across the track, as well as a sky wheelie. And walking on one tire, this would be enough to get Chad Fortune and Soldier Fortune the two-wheel skills competition win. Freestyles, there would be several good runs, such as runs from Don Creighton and Scarlet Bandit, Scott Hartsock and Slinger, who would have a lot of big air here to represent for his home state of Florida. Stephen Thompson and Earthshaker. Marion Zombie, who similarly to Scott Hartsock and Slinger, would also have a lot of big air, especially off the same jump as Scott did off the jammer jump, like that. Becky McDonough and El Toro Loco. Lindsey Wink and Luke Soul Crusader, who would have a really good run, but something really weird would happen, kind of like what happened in Tampa show 1, where he'd line up for the backflip, the Mutant backflip ramp, and he'd bounce on the back two wheelies. Somehow did not break the tie rod, but he ended up getting stuck. He couldn't get down, just like what happened to Jimmy Creighton in Tampa. The first show in Tampa of that year. Chad Fortune and Soldier Fortune would also have a pretty incredible run, with a pretty good save right here after this jump, and would keep going. Carl Van Horn and Gravedigger would also have a pretty good run, and Gravedigger with a lot of big air and pretty fast movement around the track, and even a backflip attempt which he unfortunately failed from an over rotation, and it would hit the dumpster. Chad Fortune's save and all the incredible runs, Mark McDonald and FS1 Cletus would get the win in freestyle with an amazing huge backflip, while also popping a tire. Mark McDonald and FS1 Cletus would end up winning the overall event championship after that good freestyle win. Around time after the show, we would have some issues with YouTube on BuckFan23, being my old YouTube channel, having problems with uploading, because at the time on Monster Jam, being a Monster Jam YouTuber wasn't as easy, because in 2018 was around the time when FELD would really take down people's videos, would take down people's videos that people uploaded. This was a big issue back during 2018. It's not as big now. And so some of our videos have gotten removed and taken down from YouTube, from these shows. Such as, I believe, Overboard's freestyle from show 1 in Tampa. And then other freestyles from show 2, such as Gravedigger and Cletus, have all been taken down by FELD Entertainment. And I think I've heard that our account may have been demonetized, and maybe even like you kind of like can't hardly, like you've almost like been banned from uploading videos. Maybe, I think, but I'm not really sure. So this would pretty much almost end the career of Monster Jam on YouTube for us, which would be kind of a shame since all the videos we were getting were almost averaging 1,000 views, which would have been really good if we could have gotten monetized. But this would be the end of Monster Jam on YouTube, only for something greater that would come just only 3 years later. It is now time for the August of 2018. And if you can remember, in August from 2017, I ended up going to Amalie Arena. But now, since I've got a new area and new stop for Monster Jam being Orlando, we got tickets for both Amalie Arena and Amway Arena in both Tampa and Orlando, but only for the show 1 Saturday afternoon shows. So it'd be time to go to Amway Arena in Orlando. The show lineup would feature Cole Nykelberger and Max D, Trent Montgomery and Megalodon, Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger, Miranda Kozad and Scooby-Doo, Caleb Blood and El Toro Loco, Tony Oaks and Soldier Fortune Black Ops, Jack Brown and Monster Rottweiler, and Barney Musauer and Zombie. At the pit party in show 1, since I wanted to get all the autographs and I'm going to pit party for both shows, I split it up. In the first show, I ended up going to go meet Trent Montgomery, Barney Musauer, Tony Oaks, and Jack Brown. In timed racing, Cole Nykelberger and Max D would get the win. Fortunately, I can't show footage since I don't have any footage to show you, since hardly any footage on YouTube for the show barely exists besides the highlights Monster Jam uploaded. Cole Nykelberger would win timed racing on show 1. Trent Montgomery would win this 2-wheel skills competition. Cole Nykelberger would win ATVs. Tyler Menninga would win donuts. Cole Nykelberger would win speedsters. Tyler Menninga would win freestyle. And Tyler Menninga, I guess, would win freestyle and overall, I guess. No, I made this PowerPoint a little time ago. I can't really remember, what I put in there. I think Cole Nykelberger may have won overall, but I can't really remember. You'd have to fact check that on monstrum.com with the results. And then it would be time for Amalie Arena, which would feature the exact same lineup the next week. For both of these shows, I ended up getting sick from some open house thing at my school that took place a couple weeks earlier. And I got sick and I had a really bad cough that would last for about 3 weeks. I almost did not go to the Amalie Arena show because of this cough. But luckily I was able to recover enough to where I could go and brought medicine just in case. For the displays at Amalie Arena, I would get to see 3 displays, being Monster Rottweiler, Megalodon, and Max D. We were gonna go see the Gravedigger and Max D. We're gonna go see the Gravedigger and Scooby-Doo displays, but unfortunately, about that. We couldn't find it. We kept driving around. Apparently, I think we went to the wrong area and the wrong school, because I believe it was at a school. I guess we went to the wrong one, and that's, I think, why we couldn't find it, because we had somehow got the wrong location. So, that's probably why we did not get to go see Gravedigger and Scooby-Doo. Because I think it was our fault, not Monster Jam's fault. At the pit party, I'd get to meet the other 4 drivers, being Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger, Caleb Blood in El Toro Loco, Cole Michaelberger in Max D, and Miranda Kozad in Scooby-Doo. In the intros for this show, something very interesting would happen, and being Miranda Kozad in Scooby-Doo would end up breaking down in intros, blowing a motor, causing her to not be able to compete for the rest of the show, which would be very unfortunate for Miranda Kozad. In time racing, Tyler Menninga in Gravedigger would get the win with an insanely fast pass. As you can see right here, going over the race and going over the jump and would get the time racing win, although he would move and hit the crush car. In the two-wheel skill competition, Tyler Menninga in Gravedigger would be 2 for 2 and get the win. It was in ATV racing, Cole Michaelberger and Max D would get the win. In Donuts, Tony Oaks and Soldier of Fortune Black Ops would get the win. In Speedsters, Barney Moosehauer and Zombie would get the win. And in Freestyle, Tyler Menninga and Grader would get the win. Again, the overall event championship, probably the most emotional victory we've probably ever seen, would be Tony Oaks getting an overall event championship. It's a very nice and well-deserved win from Tony Oaks in Soldier of Fortune Black Ops. And that would mark the end of the 2018 year. The 2018 year for Monster Jam will always be one of the best and craziest years for me and Monster Jam. And we just got to see so many crazy things, like from the emotional win of Tony Oaks, crazy saves in Tampa and Orlando, like from Cole Bernard and Chad Fortune, and I got to go see a corkscrew from Chuck Warner. Just a lot of amazing shows. Jimmy Cretin, even with the Lord Center of Gravity Bounty Hunter. It was just a really, really crazy year. But that wouldn't be the end of 2018, as something big would get announced. In 2018 as a whole would be a big change up for the Monster Jam World Finals, with Sandpoint Stadium no longer allowing Monster Jam, meaning Monster Jam would be given a rotational schedule just like WWE and the NFL for their big events, like for the Super Bowl and WrestleMania is I believe what it's called for WWE. So Monster Jam World Finals would have to do that since Las Vegas didn't really want Monster Jam there anymore. Although we would get 2 events the next year at Sandpoint Stadium. So Monster Jam decided to have a rotational schedule, and when we got home, we saw a big announcement. Monster Jam World Finals 20 would be heading to Orlando, Florida. Camping World Stadium, the exact same place where we were at just about 7 months earlier. We were there, so that's just amazing, and we would get our tickets and confirmed to go to my first ever World Finals. And well, that wrapped up the end of 2018. This documentary was originally going to be all the way from 2013 to 2022, but I realized this project is super huge, and I don't really want to make it all in one video because I may lose the videos in my photo album. So I'm deciding to make part 1 the first 5 years. Part 2 will be 2019 to 2022. Then part 3 of the documentary will be 2023 to 2028, or 2023 through 2027. And then the video would drop 2028, but that's still a long way from now. Also at this thing for Monster Jam World Finals, we also get the confirmation of the track. Although we couldn't do Vegas-style racing, we technically could through these tunnels, but I don't know if it would work. They decided to do something never seen before, the elevating starting line, which would have the trucks come up here, and come down through the seats, down here, and then jump through the thing. Then jump over the finish line for the win. Kind of similar to Vegas-style racing, but you don't go through the chicane or the tunnel. You instead are starting on top of the stadium. But it's essentially pretty much still the same. And well, that marked the end of 2018. Let's see what 2019 will have in store. Also, guys, I want to give some credits for some of the stuff. And also, first off, for credit for some of the footage used in this documentary, credits will go to SpongeBob Fan 23, aka me, for the beginning of the footage, Monster Jam, and Bradenton. Thank you all for the footage. Thank you, Shift, for the inspiration of the music during the Orlando 2018 highlight reel. Also, credit to BuckFan23 for some footage. Also, credit for kind of little memes I put in there, with the hold up, wait a minute, something right? And we're gonna have to give credit to Giamania1. Thank you for the hold up, wait a minute, something right, as well as any of the SpongeBob time cards for the 6 months later. And then also credit for footage also goes to Who's Ready for Monster Jam, Avengers Racing, Silverbullet, and Monster Jam Live 4. That'll be the end of part 1 of this documentary. Let's see what 2019 to 2022 has in store. It's going to be a lot of things that'll happen. It's going to be lots of good, lots of bad. There's going to be some good times and some hard times. Let's get ready. We'll see that soon. Hopefully, guys, I can get that video to come out hopefully early next week. If not, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Then, if not by then, hopefully before Tampa 2023. Alright, everyone. We'll see you all soon for more Monster Jam of my history.